hold your horses. Before we get into this video, there's just a few quick points I want to make. 1. All the views expressed in this video are my opinion and my experience with the game. 2. I recorded this on November 2023 and I've been sitting on this project for a little while. It's only until recently that I decided to put it into action. So if what I'm saying in the video doesn't make sense time-wise, understand that it was November of 2023. And thirdly, let me know about your experiences with Redfall, and if you're willing to return to it in 2024, let me know in the comments. And with that, let's get into the video. So let me start off by saying, when I installed Redfall, I had no intention of documenting it. But the second I stepped off this ship, I ran into 3 glorious examples of what this game has to offer, in no more than 2 minutes. These include an enemy gliding across the screen as if the law of gravity does not apply to them, a man that I can only describe as someone who wished to become a giraffe, but the genie misunderstood what he meant. Unfortunately, I don't have footage of this one, but think along the lines of the Battlefield Giraffe Man. Also, this. Whatever this is. And after seeing these glowing examples of AAA polish, I knew we were in for a doozy. Now, our story begins like most others. Our hero wakes up in a strange new place only to have a run-in with a big bad, or antagonist of the story, immediately giving our adventure purpose. Now that's all well and good, but any thought of stopping this heinous villain was immediately overshadowed by this moment. Now make no mistake, I started this game expecting jank. In fact, it is the sole reason I decided to try it out. Well, that and the fact that the game had just recently received a new update, claiming they fixed a lot of things people took issue with. But if they could add a slide mechanic and not account for the fact that someone might just look to the left while sliding, it didn't fill me with confidence that Arkane ever cared about this game to begin with. And it's not just this. You will see many examples of design choices and mechanics that were introduced to this game, only to have them half-baked and carelessly implemented. Now, I gotta be honest with you guys, I don't know all the fixes and changes they made between the release of this game and the major update. Well, to be fair, I was there from the start, but the game did not want me to play it. Well, this is a great start. I think my game is frozen. Invite player? An error occurred. Okay, that's good. Is your game stuttering at all?
No.
I climbed one surface and the game started stuttering. It's doing it again.
Wow.
Can I use this door? Oh.
There's only one exit.
There's supposed to be something here in front of me, right?
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing in my game here.
It's under renovations, man.
I just want to leave the room, please.
Tell me what's happening there, man.
My game froze.
Like froze or crashed?
Oh no, it crashed. You will notice that I attempted to recreate the shoot through the car windows to explode it feature. And yes, I'm calling it a feature because guess what? They kept it in after the update. This feature became a meme at the time because of how ridiculously stupid and illogical it is to shoot through a window and have a car explode. I don't even know how. I don't know if they were just too lazy to remove it, or if they were proud of the incredibly dumbass logic. So anyway, I make my way to the fire station, a place that would become my base of operations, and find that it has been overrun by baddies. I attempt to dispatch the baddies in an inconspicuous manner, only to find a quick shot to the head to be a more effective solution. As we make our way to the basement, it is clear that we are about to face a formidable foe, indicated by a conveniently placed shotgun, and also a detailed text pop-up describing how to destroy a vampire. Surely a momentous event such as this could have benefited from a show don't tell approach. I feel that encounter would have been a tad more impactful if the text popped up after you defeat your first vampire. On the other hand, this is the second time we've played through this section, and on both occasions I've had the vampire poof to the upper level for no apparent reason, cutting the tension and momentum of this fight dead in its tracks. god, where is he? So anyway, we beat our first vampire and we are greeted with another cutscene consisting of still shots, which I immediately skip. Look, if the devs can't be bothered to put an ounce of effort into making an interesting cutscene, I can't be bothered to watch it. Coming back to my point about questionable design choices, this is another one of them, because I've yet to find a person that enjoyed these PowerPoint presentations. Sorry if that was a bit harsh, but it's the truth.
Nobody was left out. Cups overflowing, rivers of living water.
Now here's an example of another dumb choice the devs made. They've opted to make the game always online. By that, I mean you need a constant internet connection to play the game, even if you're strictly playing solo. Now, if you don't understand why this could be an issue, you've clearly never had a knock on the door or had someone phone you during a gameplay session. This means that if you're on the menu adjusting your loadout or even adjusting your settings, the game does not pause. I'm the only one playing here. Why doesn't the game just pause? Never mind that. You probably don't know this about me, but I struggle to focus on more than one thing at a time. You'll notice the moment I step out of the fire station, a couple of helicopters fly past me and get struck by lightning. Believe it or not, I completely missed this, as I was busy reading the hero customization pop-up. Also, you'll notice the Hollow Man, a somewhat important villain in the first act, is introduced in the same sequence. And I missed that too, because I was trying to figure out how to put a skin on my weapon. You know how we could have avoided this overlap of information? A simple pause feature.
I am the Hollow Man.
Let's move on, I feel like I'm losing my mind here. While out exploring the town of Redfall, you will come across these little isolated groups of crazed cultists, consisting of about 3 to 4 people at a time. From what I understand, they added these little groups of enemies after players complained about running across the map for minutes without seeing a single gunfight. I call these little clusters of baddies 4-second encounters, because that's how long they last. 4 seconds. Well, not all of them, but most of them. It's usually over before the combat music can even kick in.
Wow.
Stop! He's already dead!
Now let me draw your attention to this little encounter. Bearing in mind this was my first session of Redfall, so I will take some of the blame as player error.
Too close!
Pretty little shit.
So let me unpack for you this little shit show. I was out exploring and ran into a new enemy called the Angler. And after incapacitating the vampire, I walked over to deliver the final blow, only to come to the sudden realization that none of my weapons had a stake on them. So in a panic I attempted to run away in hopes of getting enough breathing room so I can open my inventory and equip a weapon that had one. Usually in any other game this wouldn't be an issue, but Redfall doesn't have a fucking pause button. I soon uncovered the mystery as to why this vampire would be dubbed the Angler, and realized my efforts to escape this foe were futile. So when the more bitey Wonder Woman reeled me in for the second time and proceeded to suck me dry like a Capri Sun, I used this opportunity to make the switch. Little did I know that the weapon I would choose was going to leave me with more questions than answers. Like, why the hell does it make that weird sound after each burst? Or more importantly, why was it left in after the game had been revised and updated? Also, this whole kerfuffle could have been avoided. Why can't I just take the stake off one weapon and keep it in my hand whenever I need to finish off a vampire? Why not have the melee attack be a stake finisher? Doesn't that seem like a logical solution if you're a vampire hunter? Anyways, after defeating the Angler, I made my way to a nearby cemetery to complete a side quest. Upon completing this mission, I noticed a blue tether shooting out of one of the mausoleums, and upon further inspection, it became apparent that this was a new type of enemy. Now, I know there has to be some sort of gameplay implementation tied to this mechanic, but damn does it look out of place in a vampire hunting game. The visual design of this blue pulsing ovoid screams futuristic military energy shield. In my opinion, just a weird design choice, visually. I know that's such a small nitpick, but I would argue that having a solid idea of a visual direction creates a kind of uniformity and tone that goes a far way to keep you invested and immersed in the world they've created. I digress. The reason I wanted to highlight this segment is that little T button on the bottom right of your screen. You see, whenever you complete a mission, you are greeted with this option to immediately return to your base. Now, I don't know why Arkane has decided to hurt Redfall this way. I've actually heard rumors of Arkane employees sabotaging Redfall so they never have to work on a game like this ever again. But coming back to the return to base option, if that button had not been there, I imagine this whole scenario would have played differently. You see, when I play open world games, I almost never return immediately after completing a quest. Often something nearby would grab my attention and draw me in to investigate, and usually be rewarded for my efforts. I can tell you for sure that if the option wasn't presented here, I 100% would have taken this fight with the shielded vampires and searched the rest of the cemetery for anything interesting, and then maybe open my map to fast travel back to the base. But when the option is presented immediately after a quest, it forgoes any thought of natural exploration and even discourages it. Now at this point, I was ready to give up on this game. I was very quickly losing interest in what is honestly a lackluster offering from an otherwise highly regarded developer. But fear not, for I was about to uncover the one aspect of this game that would ultimately spur me on to complete my goal of rolling the end credits. Yes folks, that kind of investment in a game can only come from one thing. A green rarity revolver. Believe it or not, the inclusion of a half-decent revolver is enough for me to see a mediocre game through to its end. Even though I joke about it, that is genuinely how I felt when I discovered it. I'm no gun nut, okay, but I do have a deep appreciation for hard-hitting revolvers in the game. There's a hint of irony in that statement because I've not played Red Dead Redemption 2 and I have zero interest in cowboys and westerns. The sad part is I can say I've beaten Redfall but not Red Dead Redemption 2, and I have to live with that. The point is that finding this revolver meant that there had to be a better one out there just waiting to be looted. You might think to yourself that maybe the loot system is good if we manage to get him hooked. To that I say, don't get it twisted. I'm just a lunatic that needs to find a legendary revolver if the game has one. And spoiler alert, it doesn't. But I didn't know that at the time and it was enough to keep me going. The loot system feels flawed and tacked on. Most times you'd find a high level shotgun or sniper only to have it outclassed by a white rarity pistol an hour later. Very early on you'll notice that there are only a few statistic modifiers per weapon class, and they will randomly throw them onto a weapon to slightly alter it. That is to say that there's not much variety, and speaking of a lack of variety, the legendary weapon, oh my goodness, the legendary weapons on show here are abysmal. In a game such as this, that places so much emphasis on random weapon drops and unique modifiers, all leading you to create an ideal build, you'd think there'd be more variety. In my 13 hours or so of playtime, I think I picked up all the legendaries this game has to offer. And more importantly, so many duplicates. I feel like this game would have benefited from a weapon system that's similar to Far Cry 6's one. That is, to drip feed new weapons to the player over the course of the game and allow them to customize the scopes, barrels, ammo types and more to how they like it. This to me would create a fun gameplay loop that would encourage players to venture out into the world, to seek out challenging enemies and explore. I don't think Redfall's current loot system complements the game in any way. Just leave that kind of thing to Destiny and Borderlands, okay? Let me once more draw your attention to a sequence that perfectly sums up Redfall in a buggy nutshell. First of all, you'll notice that it starts well with an intricately detailed room that seems to have been hit by a stasis explosion, with its contents being suspended mid-air. Absolutely beautiful stuff. Clearly a lot of time and effort went into designing this little corner of the house. But just a few steps outside this room do we encounter this. A Hollow Man cultist gliding across the courtyard, blissfully unaware that he might be standing on Aladdin's magic carpet. I can show you the world. But after the shenanigans, we come across a couple of good old vampires. And you may ask, are those twin vampires? The answer is no. They are in fact the same model of vampire with different clothes. You'd think there'd be more variety in enemy designs, considering how often you'll come across these lesser vampires. But alas, there are only about 3 different models with at least 2 changes of clothes each. It all becomes so monotonous so very fast. This little snippet of gameplay perfectly encapsulates everything Redfall hopes to be, but ultimately fails to accomplish. A richly detailed town that attempts to immerse you in a beautiful and vibrant, yet haunting barren landscape for you to explore, only for your enthusiasm to be drowned by storytelling that fails to captivate the player, hindering their investment in the world around them. Secondly, a gameplay loop that for the most part is supposed to be the bread and butter of these types of games, but somehow fails to be engaging or rewarding enough to hold the player's interest, made worse by the fact that AI is so easily exploitable and riddled with bugs. Thirdly, a choice to center the game around vampires was a fantastic one. In my opinion, a great move on Arkane's part. This genre still holds a lot of potential and is yet to be overplayed in terms of video games. Sadly, vampire encounters quickly become boring and repetitive due to a lack of variety and even lack of intimidation. When you're fighting the 87th vampire with a bob haircut and they chase and slash you as soon as they see you, it kinda gets stale after a bit. Not to mention, if you change their vampire skin model for a zombie one, we would have a rather mediocre zombie survival game on our hands. Once again, bring it back to poor design choices. Why did they choose to introduce the Rook mini-boss in a lighthouse? This was the most confusing intro to a boss I've ever experienced. To be honest, I didn't even know this was a boss fight for the longest time. I mean, I was just moving up the lighthouse collecting resources until the lightning storm played out, but on my way down, I came to realize why the combat music was pumping for the past 5 minutes. My first encounter with the vampire overlord's lapdog was the most unintimidating and clumsy fight I've ever played. He seemed confused about how to get to me. He was popping in and out of existence in the most buggy way possible. There was even a moment where he seemed to be too afraid to follow me up a couple steps and decided to retreat. I was so perplexed by the whole situation, I remember just doing one of these. And it doesn't stop at the Rook. The boss fights themselves were pretty easy, with bosses having about 2 moves each in their very limited repertoire. Honestly, the final boss was the only one with some semblance to an engaging and challenging encounter. Funny enough, you don't even fight the boss itself. You deal with some of his stronger minions, but you know what, I'll take whatever I can get. Overall, to me, Redfall was a huge disappointment. Not because it was a bad game, but it committed the highest form of cardinal sin in video games. It is an incredibly middling experience that did nothing particularly well. I mean, every now and then people will be reminded of the utter failure of Gollum anytime the Lord of the Rings is mentioned, or even the completely rushed shitshow that was Skull Island: Rise of Kong. But Redfall is being erased from history slowly but surely. As of the time of writing, there's less than 50 people returning to Redfall every day. To put that into perspective, Borderlands 1, a looter shooter from 15 years ago, has about double the amount of returning players. Mind you, I'm talking about the standard edition, the 2009 version. The enhanced version of Borderlands 1 has a lot more players. Even a game like Dishonored, a single player experience from 12 years ago, also developed by Arkane, sees 10 times the number of players every day. If that isn't evidence enough, just look at this interview from the Game Awards 2023, just after Arkane announced that they were working on Blade.
On Blade's 50th anniversary, we are so honored to announce this true Marvel team-up.
Yes, and after Dishonored and Deathloop, our first order of business was to make another very Arkane game, but with a title that is easier to say in a French accent.
Did you catch it? Funny how they'll mention a franchise from 12 years ago but just gloss over the long-awaited game that had just come out a few months ago. I don't know, I just found that shit funny when it happened. What Redfall done here is created a game that does well to tick a lot of boxes of features you'd expect in a modern game, but does so without innovating or even properly executing any of them. The iconic Arkane art style can only carry you so far before someone starts digging below the surface to find a hollow and rather unremarkable game. And that's the end of the story. If you made it this far, you're a goddamn legend. I want to thank you for watching. Leave a like, please. It really helps me out. I want this one to go a little further than the others. You know what I mean? And if you'd like to see more, please subscribe and stick around, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy. Bye bye.